Before we begin, I just want to say thank you to every person who has left a comment on my recent videos, telling me how happy they am that I'm back and how much they missed me. And it really warmed the, what is it they say? The cockles of my heart. It warmed me inside because it was very sweet. People saying, oh, we've missed you. I'm so glad you're back reviewing books and that you're back into reading. And I'm very happy to say, yes, I am back into reading. I am trying. I'm doing my best. So thank you so much to everyone who has stuck around during my ginormous hiatuses. Hiatuses? Is that a thing? If there's more than one hiatus, what is it? Hiatuses. Hiatuses. I don't know. Anyway, let's do our intro. Let's get started. Okay. Hello. Hi, my little babies. Welcome back to another episode of What the Smut. It is I, Candace, coming at you with another review. I'm back. Hi, how are you? I hope you're well. I am alive, if not well. I'm kicking, but not well. Anyway, in today's video, we are going to be reviewing a book that took the world by storm. And it took me a year, maybe two, since its release to actually read the book. Don't come for me, okay? I'm doing my best, as I said. Anyway, in this video, we're going to be reviewing this book. If you read romance, if you read dark romance, you will know that you will have probably read this book. It was very popular. It still is very popular. There have been many iterations, not many, a handful of iterations of special editions of this book, one of which I own. And yes, there is something about the man cover on this book that like does something to me. I think it's his eyes, but he's smoking. There are two original covers of this book. There's one regular with the man on it, and then there's the discreet cover that has like, I think, 4-leaf clover pattern on it. So take your pick. But this is the book that we will be talking about in today's video. Let's talk about it. This book is currently free to read with Kindle Unlimited. If you want to purchase this book for your Kindle, you can get it for $5.99. If you want to own the paperback for this book, you can get it for $14.99 and also $19.99. Like I said before, there are two different covers, so it's possible that maybe one is more expensive than the other. I don't know. There is a hardcover edition of this book available on Amazon for $24.99. There is also audio. If you don't do anything else I tell you, listen to the audio for this book. You can ignore every other piece of advice I ever give you. You have to listen to the audio. The narrator, I don't remember who the girl is, but she was good. But the male narrator for this book, his name is Eric Nolan. He's Irish. Sir, you have absolutely no business sounding that attractive. It is so far out of bounds. You should be ashamed of yourself. You should be ashamed of yourself, okay? Shortly following the listen to this book, I actually came to find out that, sorry, my allergies are bad. I actually came to find out that he does like audios for like an app called Quinn, and he does like spicy audios. He does other audios too that are not necessarily spicy, but he does spicy audios on that app. It's like a subscription app, and he puts up new audio clips every week. And I heard from my friend that BB is the one who writes the majority or all of the script for those audios. Anyway, did I even say the title of the book? Candace, why are you so dumb? Anyway, in today's video, we're going to be reviewing The Devil of Dublin by BB Easton. This is the first book in a duet. It's not, I was going to say, it's not a duet like as in two books about the same couple, but you know what you did, BB? You know what you did. We'll talk about that later. But this is the first book in a duet. Two books. There's The Devil of Dublin and The Devil Himself. Two different cover models. You'll find out later why. The second cover model didn't do anything for me, though. And there was something about him I didn't like. The first model. Anyway. I'm going to read you guys a blurb. And then I'm going to try and give you a brief overview because I took probably about 3 pages worth of notes for this book. No lie. Speaking of, this book is 361 pages. So I've read bigger, but that's still hefty. The audiobook felt both longer and shorter than 361 pages. Don't ask me how. It just did. Okay, I'm going to read you guys the blurb, and then we'll try and break it down as best as my trash brain will allow. I can't remember anymore if my grandfather's eyes were blue or green, but I'll never forget the way they wrinkled at the corners when he laughed at one of his own jokes, or the way they sparkled with mischief when he told me tales about the magical creatures that dwelled in the forest behind his humble Irish sheep farm. Shy fairies who like to eat tea biscuits, cruel witches who like to eat children, a moody lake spirit with a taste for expensive gifts. As a child, I believed every fantastical word. But when he warned me about the mute boy who also lurked in those woods, the one the priest had declared to be the spawn of Satan himself, I refused to listen. Kellen wasn't evil. He was kind and beautiful and special and hurting. He was my friend. And with every summer I spent stolen away with him in those enchanted woods, he grew to become so much more. But when I returned to Glenshire as an adult, grieving and engaged to someone else, all those legends quickly morphed into nightmares. My grandfather had been right about everything, especially the boy. If only I had listened. I'm sorry. If there's one thing that BB can do, it's write a goddamn book. Okay? This book fucked me up. It fucked me up. I was engaged. I was obsessed. I was wounded. All the things. All the things. Let's talk about it. The two main characters for this book are Kellen and Darby. It was a little weird reading a book where the main female character's name is Darby for me, because my brother's baby mama is named Darby. So that kind of made my brain hiccup a little bit, but I got past it. It was fine. Kellen is what you would call a selective mute. He doesn't speak because he has a lot of trauma. A lot of trauma. If you're a church-going person, don't read this book, okay? If you are a devout, religious person, don't read this book. It will make you question a lot of things in the church. It did for me, and I don't even go to church. He was orphaned as a child. His mother voluntarily gave him over to the church, thinking that he was the devil's son, that he was evil. And in actuality, she handed her son over to a pedophile priest who then subsequently abused him for the majority of his life. Not just sexual abuse, physical abuse. And so he does not speak. Darby is American. She has come to, in the beginning of the book, she has come to a little town called Glenshire in Ireland with her mother, who's a single parent, to spend time with her grandfather who lives in Ireland. Her grandfather tells her all of these stories about the nearby woods and a legend about a lady that lives in the loch, the Lady of the Loch, and how she is famous for like creating couples or bringing couples together. And so, you know, he tells her about fairies and like all of these things, right? But there is allegedly a witch who lives on the other side of the loch who is evil and eats kids and right, okay, kidnaps kids. So naturally, as a child would do, she goes into the woods. He tells her how to attract fairies by taking like biscuits, cookies with her. And she does. She takes a little tin of cookies and she goes out into the woods trying to find fairies. While she's there, she runs into a little boy who is hiding in the ruins of an old cottage in the middle of the woods. And at first she thinks this is the witch's cottage. Oh my God. No. It's an old ruin of a house. And he's hiding inside, like hunched down on the floor, covering himself. And it is very apparent from the jump that this kid has anger management issues. He feels so much rage because of all the trauma that he's endured that he has these bursts of like violence that continues into adulthood. So she sees him and she thinks, this is a funny looking fairy. He has long black hair. He has the most beautiful eyes. And he's starving for the biscuits. He's starving. He's not getting fed properly. He devours the biscuits. And she thinks he's a fairy. She's like 8, maybe less, maybe younger than 8. I can't remember, 6, something like that. Anyway, so she bonds with the boy. And in turn, he bonds with her in a very sporadic, like, I can't tell if you like me kind of way, because sometimes you'll be really friendly with me, and then other times you freak out when I touch you or when I get close to you or whatever, right? And again, trauma. So she's there visiting for the summer. They spend time together. She goes back to America. She comes back the next summer or 2 summers later. No, the next summer. And she finds him again. And he recognizes that she can only stay for a certain amount of time, that she has to go away. And so he only gets to see her once a year. Wow, everything I said is wrong. She's not like 8, she's like 12. Anyway, so she comes back 2 years later and finds him again in the woods. She comes back 2 years later during the summer to visit Grandpa, and she finds him again. And they go swimming in the loch. They kiss. When they kiss, she hears like a voice, a woman's voice. And they end up like, he goes swimming in the loch. She tries to like swing off the tire. It's not like a tire swing, but it's like a rope swing. And she falls and she hurts herself. But while she's in the water, there's like these 3 dots that appear on her ring finger. And then the same 3 dots appear on his ring finger. And the legend is that essentially the Lady of the Loch has paired them together. So she goes back to America. She doesn't come back. After they've had a significant amount of time bonding to each other, she doesn't come back. He's in love with her from like a child age. She's in love with him from like child age. Like that innocent child love that then later on develops into not so innocent love. But she doesn't come back. And he's very hurt and he's resentful and he thinks that she's abandoned him. When in reality, she doesn't come back because her mother doesn't bring her back, because they didn't have the money, because her mother is a single parent, and then eventually her mom got sick. And it turns out that her mother had cancer. She comes back after many years away when her grandfather passes away. And she comes back for the funeral. At this time, she has a fiance. She remembers Kellen. She still feels a pull towards Kellen, but she hasn't seen him in a really long time. And she thinks he's probably moved on with his life. He's forgotten about me. And she's, to an extent, moved on with hers. She met this guy, John, who is a piece of human garbage, by the way. I actually wrote down in my notes, in all caps, where is it? Fiance is a fucking dick. Because he is. He screams at her. Verbally abusive, sexually abusive, physically abusive. He's not a nice guy. He's a lawyer. And she's come back for the funeral with him. And come to find out, her grandfather has left her the cottage, the house that he was living in, and the sheep farm that he owned. Her uncle, and her grandfather's son, her mom's brother, I think, is very resentful over the fact, and like makes a big scene at the grandpa's funeral, which I was like, damn, son, like, this is your dad's funeral. You better chill. But she's very John. We think that John is the one that's made her like very demure, very meek, very afraid. It comes out later that she was sexually abused by one of her father's friends. And it fucked her up bad. She's afraid of like the dark. She doesn't like small spaces. She gets PTSD very easily. While John's fucking off doing something else, she goes walking in the woods. And she runs into Kellen. Since the time that she's been away, he has grown up. He still doesn't speak, but he has become like an assassin for the Irish mob. He's like their best assassin. And everyone is afraid of him. Shortly after they first met, he shaved all his hair off, or he had to shave all his hair off because Father Henry, that piece of shit priest that he was living with, like ripped out chunks of his hair. And yeah, so since the time that she's been gone, he has grown up into this killer, and he knows she's there for the funeral, and he's like, I have to go and see her, even if it's from a distance. So he's been like low-key watching her. She comes into the woods, she runs into him. They have a moment. He realizes that she's engaged, and her ring, her engagement ring from this asshole John, is like irritating the skin of her finger, and she can't figure out why. And little does she know that the day that they both fell into the lake, or the day they went swimming in the lake and she fell, and the 3 little dots appeared on their fingers, the reason that her ring is irritating her is because she can't marry John, because technically, according to the Lady of the Lock, she is already married to Kellen. You can't marry someone who's not your husband. You already have a husband. It was so fucking romantic. I can't. So anyway, he walks in to the cottage. Kellen walks into the cottage. Kellen walks into her grandpa's house in time to see John on the verge of sexually assaulting her. He loses his fucking mind, and he strangles John with his bare hands. In front of her, he kills her fiance. And in his mind, he's thinking, she thinks I'm a monster. And in her mind, she's going, you saved me. You're my protector. He deserved it. So Kellen concocts this scheme where he's going to sink their car into the lake with John's body inside. And when they locate everything, it's going to be presumed that they were both kidnapped. John was murdered. And he's going to set up the Irish mafia. And they're going to run away together. Right? He needs money to fund like new passports and fake paperwork and give them new identities. And to get that, he has to sell a shipment of guns that was supposed to be like sold for the mob. They go through trying to get these guns sold. I feel like the book was almost split into 2 sections. The first section was as they grow up, they're meeting, they're being together, like them forming that bond. The second part of the book was like very action-packed and very one thing after another, right? In very quick succession. And so that's why I said in the beginning of this video that it almost felt like the book was longer than 361 pages, but also shorter than 361 pages. Because the first part is drawn out and you feel like that connection because it's very detailed, it's very well written. And then you get that second part that's like when all the crazy shit is happening, right? Anyway. So during his adult life, he has been a very loyal enforcer for the mob, for the Irish mob. He took a job that was given to him by the head of the Irish mob. I think it's called the UIB. And he took this job to assassinate a Russian rival. Well, now that Russian's, I can't remember if it's his son or his brother. Anyway, there's like another Russian who's now coming after Kellen because they don't know that the UIB ordered the hit. The head of the UIB, to cover their ass, the head of the UIB decides to essentially sell Kellen out to the Russians. Kellen walks into the middle of this plot, realizes what's happening, and takes the guns, the shipment of guns, to sell on the side to get him and Darby new paperwork to get out of the country. Or in this case, he tries to sell them. He has a very hard time selling these guns. There's like a thing where he meets up with a buyer, a whole shootout happens, the deal falls through, he doesn't get the money. In the meantime, they're both dealing with their own individual trauma and trying to heal each other from said trauma. And their relationship is and it's mostly on his part, no touchy, right? Like, if anyone touches him, he freaks out. And obviously, as you can expect, when it comes to sexual things, that's very difficult. It makes it very difficult for them as a couple. But eventually, they work through that. But it's not, in a lot of books, you have it to where, oh, I, as the man, have experienced a lot of trauma in my childhood. I was sexually abused, I was whatever. And now I can't be touched. And that has happened with like female main characters too. But when they meet their opposite, whether it's man, woman, whatever, their person, the other main character of the book, they can somehow, I won't say magically, but like it happens very easily, that they can somehow tolerate that other person's touch when no one before them has been able to penetrate that wall. In this book, it was a gradual process. He could tolerate some touching, and then other touching he would freak out. Or if he got too into his head, he would freak out. Or et cetera, et cetera. And she was also simultaneously going through her own stuff, like on a smaller scale, but she wanted to help him. Like, she was very, I want to help you work through this. I want to be with you. From the point that he kills her fiance, that's it. Like, that's it for her. We're together. We're a couple. For him, it's been since the day they met. And obviously, I don't think he's been with anyone else. I can't remember that detail, if he was a virgin or not. But if he was with someone, it was nothing meaningful. He couldn't be touched. P.S. Father Henry gets his. Kellen goes back as a teenager, or like escapes. But before he leaves, he burns the place down with Father Henry inside. So, good riddance to bad rubbish. Fuck off. So anyway, there is like a third act breakup at the end of this book that isn't really a breakup so much as like another one of those like near-death scenarios, or like there's just like this big shootout at the airport. Anyway, the Russian that's after them is coming and finds them at the airport, but they've called in the cops. Darby orchestrates a very elaborate like setup that she's very smart. She's very smart. Anyway, they end up, all's well that ends well. They end up together. And it made me so happy. This book was very deep. This book was very dark. This book had that pull that you get with a romance novel or a book in general that resonates with you. It's not just a surface level story. It's a story. Okay? And I think a lot of that has to do with the whole growing up together element. I have found, for me personally, any books where the two main characters essentially grow up together, or you see them from different periods of their life from a younger age to the current age when they actually get together. For some reason, that makes the book feel deeper to me. It makes the connection feel deeper. It makes it meatier. You know what I mean? It gives meat to those bones, the bones of the book. Anyway, that's how this book is. Now, there's a quote in this book that is, I don't know if it's a common Irish phrase or like how they have those proverbs or whatever. I don't know if it's like common or if it's something BB wrote, because again, I'm American. I'm not well versed in like Irish lore and whatever. But there's the main quote that's taken from this book that everybody uses on like merchandise and all kinds of stuff, or like their reviews really, is, "May you be in heaven half an hour before the devil knows you're dead." And I love that. I loved it. I would get a tattoo that says that. Speaking of tattoos, there are so many people that I have seen that have gotten the 3 dots on their ring finger, like who love this book and have gotten the 3 dots tattooed on them. And that's another thing that I fucking love. I love that. But anyway, what was I saying? There is an epilogue 1 year later. They're living on the farm, and he has become a carpenter because he didn't know what else to do with his life. He always liked to build stuff from the time that he was a little boy. He liked to create things out of wood in their little rundown ruined cottage in the woods. And so he realized after he like exited the mob that he would be a carpenter and he would build stuff. And that's fucking adorable to me. She's a writer, and she writes books about like the Irish legends, and they're living on the little sheep farm together. P.S. Glenshire didn't deserve either of them, but especially Kellen. The fact that she had them settle down in Glenshire was both fitting and also not fitting, because the people of Glenshire were fucking awful to him. Like, he was clearly crying out for help his whole life, and they just ignored him. He was the troubled youth. He was the devil's son. He was blah, blah, blah. You don't deserve him. You don't deserve for him to live in that town. You don't deserve to buy his wares. You don't deserve him. Okay? Bastards. In the epilogue, he shows her a bench that he carves to put next to the lake for them to sit, which was fucking cute. In the epilogue, she gives Kellen an apology letter from his mother. And it turns out that his mother was also raped by Father Henry. And he, in being the son of the devil, he was Father Henry's bastard child. So, yeah, I think that's it. I think that's it. Anyway, I fucking loved this book. It's one of those books that will stay with me for a really long time. Now, I have heard the beginning, spoilers for the beginning of the second part of this book, the second book in the duet. And something happens that when I heard it, I got the spoiler before I read this book. And I immediately went, no, I'm not reading it. I'm not even reading the first one. Fuck off. But then my friend made me read it. I don't regret reading it. Have I postponed reading the second half? Yes. Because I know what's going to happen. And I don't want it. It's worth it. I've heard that it's worth it. But the trauma is going to be so real, and I'm not okay with that. I'm not ready. I'm not ready. Anyway, I really love this book. Would I recommend this book to other people? Absolutely. For the rating for this book, I would give it a solid 9 out of 10. I loved it. I loved it so much. Yeah, I think that's it. I butchered the entire plot, but you'll be fine. I've given you enough that you know. Read it. I'll just say that. Read it. I could have just kept this video to 3 seconds. Read it. Because I said so. Anyway. If you enjoyed this video, if you like me and you like my channel, please consider subscribing. I would really appreciate it. If you would like, you can follow me on social media. You can always find me on Instagram. I am very active on Instagram. And yeah, I think that's it. I love you guys so much. Thank you for joining me for another review, and I will see you on my next one. I love you. Bye. Anyway, Carol of the Bells is my favorite Christmas song, in case you can't tell. Hello, it is I, Candace, coming at you with another review. Am I wearing the same shirt? Yes. Am I filming it at the same time? Yes. Because as previously mentioned, I don't want to put on makeup 2 days in a row. Anyway, my lipstick is not on it's on its last leg, okay? Let me get a little so I fizz in these waters. What the? Okay. I don't remember where I wrote down what her dad did. I want to say he was a rock star. I might be completely making that up. I don't know. Anyway. I don't know what just happened. I think I ran out of storage, which figures. I think I ran out of storage. And the video just stopped recording for no reason. Because if I ran out of storage to the point that it stopped recording, why would it then let me record again? If it deleted that whole video, I will lose my fucking mind. So just know that. If you see this blooper, if you see this part at the end of a blooper reel where I'm wearing different clothes and whatever, and it's because the first 38 minutes of this review got cut off, I will lose my mind. Just know I lost my mind. Okay? I love you. I will talk to you later.